Coming up on The Returned.
I was suffering from sleep paralysis. I would wake up, something was attempting to pull me from my bed. I was completely paralyzed. There was an energy, there was something there. Something did come and actually this time made contact. My head snapped.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. The truth always follows you back. Hi, and welcome to The Returned, a place where we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, signs from spirit, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. Today, we sit with Becca Metzler, a spiritual awakening experiencer whose life was completely transformed after a sudden and undeniable encounter with God, shattered everything she thought she knew about reality, identity, fear, and healing. Becca, welcome to The Returned.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
You're so welcome.
Thanks.
You're so welcome. Becca, before we get to the heart of our conversation, I always like to ground the audience in who you were before it all began. Basically, what your life was like before your awakening, and if religion or spirituality played a role in that for you.
Sure, I was I was raised Catholic, but I have to admit I wasn't buying it. To me it was more of like um a, f- a place we just had to go on Sundays, but it was okay because I had friends there and we got donuts when we were done. So it didn't really influence me too much when I was younger, but through that I did have this idea of what God was, which I was only sort of paying attention to. And really, what happened was when I was 18, my family suffered this really tragic loss. And, I was getting a lot of people who were saying things like, oh, my aunt and uncle passed at the same time, and they had 5 young children, and it just like blew our family apart. It was awful. And I wasn't that close to them, but what it really did to me was show me, oh my gosh, I didn't have any idea that in a split second, our entire lives could be turned upside down. And people were saying things to me like it was their time, God needed them. And that was not sitting with me. That was, in fact, making me quite angry. And um, that was the first time that I was really starting to think, well, then I don't like this God. I've never really bought this. I don't like this. And I'm not just gonna um, stay here, stay in this belief system. And I was angry. And that really started my journey of like, um, towards atheism. I didn't land on atheism right away. I tried agnostic. I was reading lots of things, trying to be pointed in some direction, but I also kind of had already made up my mind that I was angry at God. I didn't want anything to do with it, and it just didn't make sense to me. And so within a few years after that, I had declared myself an atheist. And so young 20s. And in that, I shut myself out from anything even spiritual. I didn't really know there was sort of this third option. It was either this God that I had been sold in church growing up or atheism. I didn't think there was sort of any in between or any other options. It didn't even cross my mind. And so I was atheist and I would let you know it. And if you believed in God, man, I mean, I wasn't mean, but I would just be like, it does not compute. Like, I didn't understand. And so looking back, I can see now how living from that place completely shut off from anything, even spiritual or divine, or something that was loving, that was bigger than me, or that loved me, or that meant anything, closing myself off from that really, of course, you know, that's how I began creating my life. So when you start
Mhm.
creating from this place of there's nothing out there and this is all madness and chaos, and by the way, we're not safe. We're not safe here. you know, that's where I was creating my life from. So that's where I was mentally, emotionally, everything when this happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
That brings up so many questions for me now. Just before we flow into the next, I'm curious. Um, like, how does an atheist live? Like, you just didn't think about where you came from or anything like that? Like, is that how do you live when you're an atheist? I know nothing about that.
Yeah. I can say, for lack of a better term, I was asleep. So I was asking the big questions. Even when I went seeking out after that horrible tragedy, I really wasn't seeking truth. I was seeking more evidence to back up what I already knew I wanted to believe, which was that there was nothing out there. And
Okay.
so it's strange because I am also an artist, and, I could see beauty in the
Mm.
world. And I remember seeing something that was like,
Ah.
that said something like, I'm an atheist, but I can also see beauty in the world. And so I kind of landed there. I wasn't just like a totally grumpy pessimist all the time, but for sure when it came to like deep meaning or higher powers or anything like that, or finding comfort in knowing that there is a purpose or something larger or a reason we're here or something I can turn to for comfort, like none of that applied to me. And I feel awful about it because my son was young, and I remember him asking me, when he was young, what happens when we die? And I was like, we rot in the ground. That's it, you know. And I've had to since go back and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. There's so much more to it. But
Wow.
it is this sort of, I mean, I didn't question it, but it's very much, um, there can be a victim mindset to it because it just kind of
Mm.
seems like everything is happening at you and to you. There's no sense of a divine
Cool.
this. Yeah, there's nothing, this is happening
Mhm.
for me. There's no even thought of growth or could there be something? Like, I wasn't even having thoughts like that.
Wow.
So it was
Wow.
it was sort of a double whammy of like making this decision without even really a lot of curiosity behind it, you know?
Mm.
So I was still able, I had friendships, I had partnerships that were rewarding, I was a mother, I held a job, but there was just this, well, for sure, depression. There was a sadness, there was
Mm.
a deep sadness, there was a deep hole that I was not allowing myself to really even recognize or feel. I was medicating in any way that I could. Um, yeah, and just not a lot of meaning. So just a lot of like, what the hell is going on at any given time, and just surviving. You're surviving at that point.
Wow. I couldn't imagine that. You said that your awakening came suddenly, intensely, and moving you from identifying as an atheist to having what you describe as a direct experience with God. Could you take us into that?
Sure. Yeah, well, I will just preface it with the years leading up to it, I was going through something that I was calling a midlife crisis. I can see now that it was my soul being like, " wake up," you know? But I was ignoring it. And I was sitting in my apartment, alone, ready for a night of numbing out with junk food and TV like I typically did most nights. And I stumbled upon a documentary on Netflix called Surviving Death. And I didn't really know what it was. I just was like, oh, we'll pop this on. I actually kind of thought it was something different. And then when I realized what it was, I remember thinking, oh, I wouldn't normally watch something like this, but like, let's just see what it's about. And I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like a 6-part docuseries. The first episode is all about near-death experiences. And then I think there's one about ghosts and more like paranormal, mediumship. And then the last episode is about children who remember their past lives. And so I just remember sitting there, with my Diet Coke and popcorn, and I'm watching this, and these people telling their near-death experience stories. And it's also got all of these people who are speaking about there's the research behind it, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and all of the scientific knowledge that we're gaining from all of these people coming forward with their experiences. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, wait, what? Like, and the thing is I probably could have watched this 2 years before and I would have been like, that's cute, whatever, and it wouldn't have done anything. But something was already stirring, like something had already started that I didn't know. And all of a sudden, it was like I was having this memory revealed to me that because these people were talking about God, like, and it's one thing I already believed in psychics and mediums. I understood the psychedelic experience, blah, blah, blah. But these people were talking about God, seeing God or knowing God or feeling God. And I could not like reconcile that because I believed them. I mean, I just knew that these stories were true and I could feel it. And instead of like, it felt like a memory was coming up that it was like, oh, I was starting to remember what God actually was. And it was the most bizarre thing for weeks after that, off and on, when I would move around my apartment or out in the world, I would feel like I was about 2 inches taller, an inch or two taller. I was like, I was seeing the world from a little bit taller. And I started to realize I was looking out of my third eye. Like my perspective was now from here, not all the time, but it was like I was tapped into some like energetic channel off and on. And I just couldn't. It took me a few weeks to put the word spiritual awakening to it because I didn't know that was a thing.
Uh-huh.
And I was standing in my living room in this mixture of panic, but also this like overwhelming, warm love that was just like flooding my body. And basically the words appeared in my mind, you are no longer an atheist. And it was like a recognition. And I was also being told that, and I didn't fight that for a second. There was almost this like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. I can't speak for all atheists, but I was so happy to drop that title. I mean, I could almost cry thinking about it now, but it was just like, got it. And God was still a very intellectual. It was still sort of bouncing around on the surface of like an intellectual knowing, right? I mean, I could feel it in my body, but I was like, holy cow, okay. And I dropped it. And everything changed after that. Everything. I didn't realize how much holding so closely to that identity, that vibration of that resistance was keeping so much out. And so just the absolute non-resistance to that. You are no longer an atheist. Got it. Dropped. Now what? And the rest has just been wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So as things began accelerating, like internally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, there came a point in your life when you knew everything started to unravel. Is that
Yeah.
sound right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to walk us through that part of your life
Sure.
and what was happening inside of you. This is very important because not all awakenings are like light and love and roses and all of those fun things. It's some of them can be quite deep and terrifying.
Yes. Yes. Quite terrifying. I will say right at the beginning, I had what I called the little pink cloud experience of like,
Mm,
oh my gosh, God is in everything. I'm not who I thought I was. And thank God for that. I can start creating this whole new life. Everything can be different. And that's all up to me. I'm no longer this victim. So I did have that period of time. And I even had like a little dark night in there. And I think about it now and I'm like, oh, that was so cute and
mm,
precious. Like, because it was like a few weeks of feeling kind of sad. Right. And I'm like, whew.
mm.
But as it progressed and the deeper I went, so of course, awakenings happen kind of to you. I mean, I didn't realize how I was not in the driver's seat of this. I mean, there's not a lot you can do except for just, it's kind of this combination, I think, of sort of like buckling up and letting go, like strapping in and also being like, okay. But of course, your body doesn't want to do that. Your nervous system is like, hell no, we are holding on. We have a death grip on this. We are, because it felt like a death, and it is a death. And
Mhm.
my nervous system was recognizing it as you're dying. And this took a little while for this to happen. It was about 9 or 10 months in, and things started to go pretty dark. Um, my awakening for sure intensified, and it felt sort of like it sped up, and it was moving at a pace, whatever that means. Now that I think about it, it felt like it was going really, really fast, and my physical body, down here in the 3D space and time, everything just moves so slowly. And there was just what felt like this growing gap between my physical body and these sort of energetic places that I was tapping into and accessing and opening myself up to. But, as that gap kind of starts to grow, the nervous system is just, I mean, I just felt so unsafe. I hated being in my body. I was constantly trying to be above and out of my body. I wanted out. It didn't feel safe to be in my body. And the more I started to wake up, it was like I was looking around and like, I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. I'm not, whatever this place is terrifying. I could feel not only my emotions, but I felt like I could feel everybody else's. And it was fear. I could feel everyone's fear, everyone's sorrow, deep
Mm.
grief, hopelessness. That's really what I was feeling at all times. So whether I was projecting that onto other people or I was really feeling their stuff, who knows? But that was all I could feel. And basically the message was, you're not safe here, get out. And it went from a few months of really escalating terror where I kept thinking, I just need to ride this out. It'll get better. Something's going on. My nervous system's a little out of whack. I was getting acupuncture, Reiki. I was trying to meditate and pray, but I couldn't really sit still for any length of time. It really did feel like I was being, it felt very dark. It felt, I felt like I was in the presence of dark energy quite a bit. I was having very disturbing dark dreams. It would feel like I was being pulled out of my bed at night. I mean, it was terrifying. And it wasn't that I wanted to die. I didn't want to be here. I was like, take me out, coach. Like, I signed up for something that I didn't actually want. I bit off more than I can chew. I was also kind of learning at the time about the idea that we plan our lives before we get here. So I was really landing on this idea of like, I bit off more than I could chew when I was coming into this one. And because it felt so big, it felt like whatever was being asked of me was so big and so scary and was going to require so much from me that I was just convinced I didn't have what it took to survive this. And I needed to be pulled out and I would try again in a different lifetime. That's where I was. And that's a really scary place to be, especially after just recognizing that you had an awakening and now God is in your life. And it was so hard for me to compute that my body and mind was having this reaction to it. But it was just devastating. It was crippling. I basically had to move in with my mother. I had to take time off of work. I had an 11-year-old son who was scared because he was seeing me bawling, weeping. I would, in any attempt to get back in my body, I would go lay in the backyard and pull my shirt up and lay my belly on the bare earth in the middle of winter. I'd brush the snow aside and lay with my belly on the ground, anything to get back into my body because my soul was just like, nope, bye, you know? And so, yeah, just about 3 straight months of terror combined with crippling depression, which is absolute hell on earth. I would not wish it on my worst enemy because there's no escape. There's no escape. And I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. I lost 30 pounds. It was gnarly. So that lasted about 3 months before I checked myself into the psychiatric ward.
Did that help?
The medicine helped. I spent 5 days in the psychiatric ward. So if you can imagine my mental state, but now I'm in a hospital surrounded by other people who are having similar mental states. Nobody understands why I'm there. No one's talking to me about God. No one's talking to me about spirituality. No one's talking to me about waking up. They're talking about anxiety like it's a stressful day. It was helpful on very surface level. Here's how you can approach when a panic attack is coming on, blah, blah, blah. Here's how we approach medication. I was really opposed to medication for the first however many months. It just didn't make sense to me that someone would need medicine. Also, I didn't know if it would even help. I was like, does medicine help with spiritual awakenings? Like, I just didn't. And I also was very afraid that medicine would cut me off from a connection to God or to my guides or to any sort of help that I was receiving from the other side. Because at the same time that I was encountering this really dark depths, I was, my God, my guides, angels, whatever, those were also coming through. And those were my lifeline. Man, I would ask for signs just to like keep my head up. Because anything that I would get that could just like keep me up a little bit, that could keep me from falling into the depths. I would ask for signs, and man, they would give them to me, like over the top, blow your mind. Truly could start crying because it was like, it was sort of, it kind of needed to match the depths of the despair, you know? So it just really felt like they were going, when they would show themselves or when I would feel their presence, oh my God, it would just shift everything. And I could ride on that for a little bit before I would kind of go back down again. I
What
could
would you see,
channel.
Becca? Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was channeling. Sometimes it felt like maybe it was a spirit guide or sometimes just my higher self. I would ask questions and answers would just come in. And so I was really in touch that way. It those and you know, the answers weren't always themselves like um super uplifting. It was very much just like, here's what's going on. Here's why we're here. Here's why you're going through this. Um a little bit, you know. And then I would just get these downloads and these hits that were like, yes, press your body to the ground. Yes, eat grounding foods. And then I would go online to see if what these ideas that I was getting had any backing whatsoever. And I would find all these things online. So I was being communicated with. I was being given guidance. And since my vibrational set point at that point was so chaotic and so low, I know that they had to like really try to get through all of that sort of distortion that was in my field to get these messages to me. And so that felt really special. And I will tell a quick story. It's my favorite story. When I write my book, there will be a whole chapter on it. And I was reading this book by Laura Lynn Jackson, and it's called Signs. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a very famous medium. And I was just like, and she was like, if you want signs from the other side, whether it's loved ones, whatever, you know, create a sign, something that is not so crazy that you would never see it, but not something that you see every day. And then kind of like set it and forget it and just let spirit show themselves to you however they will. And I don't remember how it popped into my head, but I decided on orange pickup trucks. You know, like you see pickup trucks everywhere, but you don't really see orange ones. And I was like, not work trucks, not, you know, big trucks, like an orange pickup truck. And then I proceeded to not see a single orange pickup truck for a couple of months. And then I just had this morning, just like every other morning, where I was just immediately on the verge of breakdown. I mean, I was just trying to get my son's lunch packed, get him in the car, get him to school. If I could just get him out the car door before I completely lost it, that was what I was trying to do. So it was a morning like that, just like any other. I drop him off at school. I'm breaking down in the car and an orange pickup truck drives by, and it just kind of like breaks me out of my little thing. And I think, oh, and I said out loud, oh, orange pickup truck. And I was like, well, that's lovely. That's nice. And then went on my way, and about 100 yards down the road, up in this parking lot to my left, very first parking spot as you drive by is this huge orange pickup truck. And so then my tears have really stopped. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Like, man, did I need that today? Go home, start working. Just the negative feelings are starting to come back again. So I decide that I want to go out and go for a walk through my neighborhood, which usually helps me. I go out for a walk. I turn onto the first street and I hear this car coming behind me, and I stop and I turn around, and it's an orange pickup truck just hurling past me down the road. And so I stop in my tracks, and I'm just like, you know, the pain, the anxiety is immediately lifted. I'm so grateful. I continue on my walk. I'm crying. later that night, I'm going to my gym and I'm pulled up at this stop sign. And right as I pull up, I look to my left, and backing out of the house that's right there is an orange pickup truck. And they back out, and the man who's driving it, as he stops, like makes eye contact with me and then puts it in drive and drives away. So that's 4. So I go into my yoga class and I'm just like out of it the whole time because I'm just like, oh my God, this is so crazy. This is amazing. I'm totally out of it the whole time. It was an evening class. So when I walk out at night, the sun had gone down and I was down in my car was down in this other parking lot that was basically empty at that point. And I was parked under like a street lamp post. And I go out there and I look down and I see my car. And under this lamppost right next to me is the biggest, shiniest, it's like lifted, is the hugest, almost neon orange pickup truck. And it's just my little Honda or my little Kia and this huge truck that's like easily twice the size of mine with this light above us, just like, oh. So I'm blown away and I'm sitting in my room later that night and I'm journaling about it and I'm meditating and I feel this presence in my room just like take up the whole room. And it feels so loved and so safe. I wasn't scared of it at all, unlike most of the time when I'm feeling these presences in my room. And I lay my head back and I just said out loud, "Who are you?" And right then my head goes like this and I have a book that was sitting on my dresser that was propped up and it just says angels. It was a book on angels that I had bought because I was curious about angels and my eyes just landed on the word angels. And I was just like, ugh. And they were just like, we are here. We see you. And in that moment, it was like, I don't know how that works. I don't know how they arrange for 5 orange pickup trucks to cross my path. But it was like, oh my God, you're telling me that there is something out there that loves me so much and sees me and sees what I'm going through, that I'm sure it's very easy, but whatever it was, they orchestrated this for me. And I was like, that was the first time I was like, oh my God, like I am so, for whatever reason, I am so loved. And like, that was huge. And then there've been other stories where they've shown themselves to me, but that was the biggest for sure, of just undeniable. We are here. We are with you. We see you. Like you're going to get through that. No. I mean, it was undeniable. In numerology, that's generally more about like movement, transformation, change, things like that. So it was made clear that they sent me 5 trucks on purpose. And that was sort of going to be the theme, is this, there's going to be a lot of movement, a lot of transition, transformation, and change, which is always difficult and can bring a ton of fear. And it was like a recognition of that. And like, we are with you. We love you. Let's go. There's something
Absolutely.
beautiful
You
on the
know,
other side.
Becca,
Yeah.
no, there is. There absolutely is. When your reality began breaking apart, um, did you ever once think, ever, that something was attacking you? Because you
Yes.
said you spoke about dark energies.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's why I'm wondering if
Absolutely.
you ever felt like a spiritual attack.
I did. Multiple. Um, I, it felt, I would feel it a lot in my head. It was very strange. And it just felt like this density in my head and a tightness. And I would get headaches. I would get these really bad headaches. And again, I was suffering also from a lot of sleep paralysis. I would wake up and it felt, the energy in the room was so dense and so thick, I could almost hear it. I could feel it and I could almost hear it. It felt like someone had hit a gong about 2 inches above my head. And it was typically off to my left side, but I would just feel this dark, dense energy. And there were multiple times, like I said, where I felt like something was attempting to pull me from my bed. And it was so real. I was awake. I was not asleep for these things. I would be asleep and then I would wake up and I would fully be aware that I was completely paralyzed and there was an energy, there was something there. And whatever it was, on different nights, it would attempt to pull me from different locations. And when it would stop, I could wake up and for easily 30 minutes to an hour after I was awake, I could still feel a physical sensation from where I had attempted to be pulled from. So whether it was typically the back of my head or my upper back. Um, and yes, it felt very much, it was awful. So that on top of already feeling like it's not safe to be here, I absolutely felt and was very confident that I was being spiritually, psychically attacked. I didn't really know what that meant. I was trying to find information about what that could be. There's a ton of ideas out there, but it was not good. It didn't feel like anything that had my best interest at heart. And it felt very much like something that was trying to pull me back. I'm not really sure what it was attempting to do. And, it's one of those things that's so hard to prove what's actually going on, and I ended up working with a couple different people, medicine women, shaman type women, because I did actually have a night where something seemingly did attach and entered on the right side of my head and the back, like right around here, which is honestly where I felt the most of the pressure, and where I felt typically like I had been accessed or been pulled from was like here and on the back of my head. And so there was a night specifically where something did seemingly come and actually this time made contact, and it felt like it went into my body. My head snapped like that. It was terrifying. But the wildest thing was that I had a Reiki appointment from this practitioner who offered a lot of different services, but she and I actually were supposed to be scheduled about a week before that. And we both had things come up and we had to keep pushing it out. And I had this sort of knowing of like, okay, divine timing is everything. Like, I'm not worried that it had been canceled and it had been moved. And it had been moved to essentially the day after this happened. And I showed up in her office and I didn't even tell her about it because I was so afraid. I was trying to convince myself that nothing had happened. And so I didn't even tell her about it. And she was like, I know that you signed up for a Reiki session, but she's like, I don't think that's why you're here. And I actually didn't set up the room for Reiki. I set it up for a different type of experience. And we're going to move some energy that's in your body. And I was like, okay, still, again, not even thinking about it. I get in there, the energy starts moving and I can feel it. And I keep trying to like hide it. Like my head keeps turning to the side to keep it like, and I'm like, why is my head turning this way? And it was whatever was there was essentially felt like it was attempting to hide. It was like it knew we were after it. And I proceeded to just have the craziest experience of and I just kept saying, take it from me, mother, take it from me. I mean, I wasn't even, I don't even know where that was coming from. I just could feel like that I was working with a female energy and it felt very mothering. And I said, please take it, please take it. And the practitioner was standing over my body. I mean, she was dripping in sweat and I felt it leave my body. And I just started cracking up. I was weeping and crying, but also tears of joy, because it was, but it just felt like something was after me. And it felt like they didn't want me to wake up. It felt like something that had access to me for maybe lifetimes. And maybe I think their access point was somewhere in here. And they were used to being able to access me. And that was beginning to close. I was beginning to close that off and sever that. And it felt like these attacks and these attempts to pull me back.
Hmm.
Yeah. Really bizarre.
Unreal.
Really.
Yeah. It really gives me the chills while I was sitting listening to that. I had such chills. Like, I
Yeah.
don't even know how that would feel. And actually don't want to even think about it anymore. That just really gave me the creepiest feel.
Yeah.
Wow. That must have been difficult. Very
Yes.
difficult.
Very
Um,
different.
Having said that, now you have just going back a little bit, your experience with God was when you felt that come in,
Mhm.
that stream of love come into your body. Is that when you
Mhm.
felt God?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually felt that myself. I know
Yeah.
exactly the feeling, and it is absolutely wonderful. Now, I'm wondering, so you watching that show triggered your spiritual awakening? Is that what you think happened?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think it was starting to come on, and I was resisting for sure. Um, I what was interesting is right before that, because I was going out and I was partying a lot more, and so I was drinking a lot in an
Mhm.
attempt to numb. And what had happened right before that documentary, like truly a few weeks before, my stomach started to get so upset that I could not consume more than a few sips of any kind of alcohol before I would get so sick. So I had to stop drinking. My
Mm.
antidepressants a few months before had stopped working. So my doctor was scrambling. So I was in between meds. So I was off of my meds. I wasn't drinking. Um, COVID had just started. So I was no longer able to go out and party. I had to be stuck at home. It had taken away all of these ways that I was distracting and numbing. And then it served me up that documentary, and I was open and I was ready for it. And so it
And
for sure had
and that
started a
thing
little
in
bit
your body
before.
was not happy.
No, it was not
Whatever was
happy.
there was not happy.
No. And particularly one of the
Oof.
women that I worked with was like, this entity or these entities have had access to you for a very long time.
I just got the truth bumps
Yeah.
bad when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm curious. Now, you've had sleep paralysis. Um, did you leave your body at any time during sleep paralysis? Apparently, that is one of the main things for out of body experiences. Did you have any of that?
I never did. I never did. And I'm not sure why. Because but it would seem to start asleep, and I would wake up and I would be
Mhm.
paralyzed and I could feel it. Um, but it would stop. Now, whether or not I was actually the one that was stopping it or not, but I had learned to, which was outside of anything that I previously would have been comfortable with, I had learned to call on Jesus. They said specifically call on Jesus and say, I am protected by Jesus. You do not have my permission to be here. You do not have my permission to take me. Now, I can't speak. So I'm thinking this. I'm trying to speak, but it's coming out as like, it's nothing. But I'm thinking, and I'm calling in Jesus every time. And so it would stop. Now, it might happen again the next night or a week later, but when I would start to call on Jesus, it would inevitably stop. An atheist for so long, Jesus didn't really mean a whole lot to me. I didn't really know what it was, what he was or what he represented or Christ consciousness or any of that. And so it was very strange, but I was so desperate. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll call on Jesus. I'll call on whoever. And then, yeah, that was sort of the beginning of a relationship with Jesus, which is just also so wild for me to say.
Have you
Just my
had a
life.
personal conversation with him
I
or
have,
connection with him?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He speaks to me, and I'm always surprised by what he says, but it's always exactly what needed to be said, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
I've
Yep.
yeah. So that's been a really amazing part of this transformation, is that level of contact. I'm sure if you've had it, feels amazing. It takes you outside of space and time. I read somewhere God or Jesus or whatever does not give you victory in battle. He pulls you above the battlefield. So when I feel like I'm on the battlefield and I call for Jesus, and in my silly little mind, I think he's going to give me the answer of what to do here. And instead, he drops these wisdom bombs on me that actually pulls me up and above this perceived level of problem or what it is that I think I'm going through. So just knowing that that's even possible, that I can be pulled up and above with the help of Jesus, that has then led me to realize I can do that on my own too. Like, I don't always have to call on Jesus to realize that I can pull myself up and above and view everything from that perspective. The eyes of God versus the eyes of Becca down here trying to figure stuff out. Yeah.
How does he come through for you? How do you know, like, it's him?
You see this?
And people will
I
just
know.
ask this in the audience. How does she know? Right?
God. Well, he's got, just like anything else, he's got his own unique frequency, signature, vibration, whatever you want to call it. And I recognize it when it comes. The first time he ever came, he also used outward physical symbology. So I was driving
Mm.
and I was on a road trip by myself going to a cousin's wedding, and I was going through it. All of this stuff, this sort of shame was one of the last things that I really worked through, as I was working through all these different things that you go through that come up on your awakening journey. And for whatever reason, just alone in my car, all of the shame was coming to the surface and asking to be looked at. And I tried putting on music, a podcast. I was talking to it and I was like, not now. I don't want to do this now. And then finally, I was like, fine. If I'm going to look at this and feel this right now, I want you to be with me. Just come sit next to me. Hold my hand through this. Like, look at this with me. I want to look at this through your eyes instead of mine. Because mine just sees dirty, filthy shame, disgust, and very uncomfortable. And I'm driving and the sun is setting, and up on the left side of the road is this huge cross, and it's made out of metal, and it's just the frame. It's just the frame of the cross. And so it's empty. So I'm driving, and as soon as I asked Jesus to sit with me, I forgot that I did. I just asked and then just kind of kept going with the shame spiral and not really even knowing. This is my first time actively calling him to be with me. And I'm driving and oh my God, I could start crying. Damn it. The sun is setting and it bursts through the inside of this cross. And I just feel this presence and I hear the words, "Don't you know I love you?" So it wasn't, let me look at this shame with you. Let me look at these bad, shameful things you did that hurt other people in your past. It was, my child, don't you know I love you? And in that moment, the shame was gone. The shame was gone. And I can still look back on those memories and see them and see that I did these things that were not good, that hurt other people, that hurt me. And that energetic charge of shame that was so potent is gone. Because it was like, you are this being that is so loved by God, by me, by everything. We don't even see that. Jesus didn't even see my shame. It was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't you know I love you? That's not you. And so it doesn't dismiss it or make it okay, but it was this ultimate, because it was like a forgiveness without even needing to be forgiven. It was like, there's nothing to forgive. That is not you. Can't you see that that's not you? And I love you. Another message that he will send is, if only you knew what you were. So I'll be in these loops of, I got to figure this out. Why isn't this working? What do? I don't know what to do. And I'll call on him, and it's never the answer of what to do. It's never like, oh, send this email, make this phone call, think differently. It's like, if only you knew what you were, period.
Yeah.
You would realize these aren't actually problems. It's like, know I love you. Remember what you are. Those are the messages from Jesus.
Beautiful. You know, we are our heaviest judges, I do believe. And that sneaky little word shame seems to hide out and come up whenever it wants to rear its ugly head, doesn't it? And it just is something I also, and probably a lot watching, have had experience with. So from here, I really want you to think about this. Why do you believe this experience happened to you specifically? And how did it change the way you show up in the world today?
Oh my God. It has changed everything. There is not a single nook or cranny of my life that has not been completely overhauled by this.
Mhm.
As far as why me, I think I'm beginning to learn that well, first of all, I really do believe that we choose what we're going to experience. I think what's happening on the planet right now is a really, really intense and important shift. And it's going to cause, it's a consciousness shift.
Mhm.
And it's going to cause a lot of fear. It already is a lot of distress, a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of really dark times for a lot of people. And I don't think it was a mistake or random that my awakening got so dark, because it was dark combined with my limiting beliefs that I am small, that I am powerless, that I am weak, that I am alone. So think of the biggest, scariest thing ever happening combined with that. And how many humans out there think I'm small, I'm
Mhm.
weak, I'm incapable, I'm naive, or I don't know enough, or I'm not strong enough. Oh my God, I'm not strong enough was like on repeat. And there is a process. There is something that we can do to survive and overcome and actually step into these true, divine, very authentically powerful beings. When we align, when we recognize that we are God, that we are made up of God, we are never separate from God. The strength and the
Yes.
creativity that God has is in us. Jesus said it. If we could pay attention, I think that I am here to help guide people through the dark. I don't know if you're familiar with the goddess Hecate or Hecate or however people pronounce it, but she is really this goddess of liminal spaces. She's very comfortable above and below ground in the underworld. She walks at dawn, all of this sort of symbology of she holds this space of in between, this space of crossroads. Now, she came to visit me very early in my awakening, the archetype of her, and I was not familiar with her. I had to look her up. And it just sort of showed me this almost like a holding people's hands, just standing beside someone or beside humanity as we walk through the dark. And really
Mm.
this understanding that when you keep your eyes open in the dark and you don't run, it transforms, and there's this alchemical process that happens, and it's almost magical what you can create from these really juicy, fertile, dark, seemingly scary places if you can hold yourself and allow yourself to stay there and walk through it. But it is not something that I walked through alone. My God, the people
Mhm.
that came to me, if I could be that in some way for anybody, that's why I'm here.
No,
100%.
that's beautiful. That's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Becca, I absolutely love your story. You have so much insight and you have come so far in your awakening. Now, for people listening right now who might feel like they are mentally, emotionally, and spiritually unraveling, what are some grounded things that generally helped you heal and connect with life again? God, Jesus, spirit guides, and etc.
Yes, there's a lot, and it's sort of, part of this, it's very movement. Awakenings they move constantly. They're changing constantly. So kind of like you'll notice at different points in times, different things tend to be more helpful. I will say, and I think this is also why I think the 12-step program has had so much success is this it takes courage, believe it or not, to let go
Mhm.
and hand it over to God. Because
Yeah.
and I'll do it and then I'll pick it right back up again. I'm like, whoops, here you go again. Like it's our tendency to want to pick these right back up. And so it is it's a practice, and it does require I call it devotion. So like a little bit of discipline with love and compassion for yourself. So like if the word discipline scares you, which it totally scared me at first, I believed I had no discipline or focus or anything like that. So I learned pretty early on, if I want to survive this and get through this, I need to have a devotional practice where I do have some discipline. And that is just to pay attention. All of these ways that we're so automatic and we let our mind be just taken from us and hijacked, and it's this willingness to let go, a willingness to change, and a knowledge that, yes, I can do my part, but 99.9% of that is going to be God. It really is. Whatever this higher power, it's your intention and your willing and your openness, and spirit, God, whatever will do the rest. And this takes a little bit of time and trust, because at first I was like, well, I don't trust that. I can't trust that I can set this down and it will actually be taken care of better than I ever could. So that's the practice, is this sort of devotional practice of releasing, recognizing when you've picked it back up again and releasing again, whether that's a thought, a fear, a behavior, anything, is finding this incredible power that comes from giving the power where the power really is
Hmm.
and surrendering to that, if that makes sense. It's but it is, it's a practice, because it's not it doesn't come naturally for so many humans with the way that we live today, with the way that we're sort of programmed constantly.
Right.
It is actually very natural, and it becomes natural, it becomes second nature to start. You just remember, oh yes, I am safe. I'm so safe. I'm safe to let this go. But it does take a little bit of time. But there's, I have no doubt, because I've lived it now, and I've experienced it. Like, God, spirit will not let you down. You will not be abandoned. There is nothing that can come between you and God when that is what you are open-heartedly seeking. There is nothing.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's no answer to the pain.
No.
And but if you can hold the knowing and the spaciousness for, this is for me, and what's on the
Yes.
other side of this is something that I can't even imagine, because I've never seen it before. But my God, it must be amazing. And I'm telling you, it is. It is.
Absolutely.
And despite what I just went through, my God, I hope I never have to experience anything like that again. I I would do it to reach the place where I am now. And this is coming from someone who was so convinced that I could not do it, that I was praying for God to take me back. So there is a little bit of this, like, holy cow, if I can do it, anyone can. Yeah.
So amazing that you've come to this realization from where you were, because it seems like you were very far from ever thinking this. This is something that I feel, and actually something that I'm seeing more often. Now, have you noticed a change in humanity when it comes to um to spirituality or spiritual awakening even, or humanity awakening, or a great awakening? There's many calling it a great awakening. Do you see this yourself yet?
Yes. I started seeing it
Mhm.
immediately. Because people are talking about it, right? As soon as I realized it
Mhm.
was a thing, I couldn't stop finding it. It
Yeah.
was like, since it didn't mean anything. A spiritual awakening or consciousness shifts didn't mean anything. So
Mhm.
even if they were happening in my reality before all of this, I was not perceiving of them for what it really was. But, my awakening started in the middle of COVID. And so I was seeing awakenings that looked very different from mine, that I wouldn't have even recognized as awakenings until I started really going through it. And I'm realizing that these awakenings, although I wish they all looked like mine so I could recognize it and see it, I realize that they come through in oh my God, they're so different for everybody. But just in my little bubble, what I'm noticing is, and I don't mean this in like a pat on my back or like it has anything to do with me, but happened to me has now sparked awakenings of different levels in every person that I'm closest with. My awakening has
Mm.
changed the lives drastically of the people who are closest to me, because I don't shut up about this. I have a new way that I
Mhm.
speak about the world. I don't speak the same way I used to speak. I don't say the same things I used to say. So I can't hold those old types of conversations anymore, and I won't. And so, and I've learned early not to push ideas on people, but just this new way, banded way of seeing things, I'll let it kind of leak out. And I'm noticing, that people are so ready for it. They're most likely already on their own little journey and maybe may or may not be aware of it yet. And then we're just like I just see it as these like ripples in a pond. We're just going out and we're sparking other people's stuff, and we're finding each other, and we're having these conversations we wouldn't have typically ever had. And then we can't even see how far out the implications go. But I do just get this feeling that it's just like this, and it's
Oh,
just
big time.
spreading.
Ripple.
And I have had influencers, that I found online early on who were really aligned with kind of where I was. And one thing I'm really recognizing is all these people who used to talk about all these different types of things, aliens or maybe new age type stuff, which by the way, I'm totally into all of that. But all of a sudden, everyone's talking about Jesus. All of a sudden, Jesus and this Christ consciousness is coming in like a flood. And
Yeah.
I personally kind of think that this might have been more what was meant by the second coming. Is it's not Jesus going to show up in a body, but the consciousness that he attained, Christ, which is not Jesus's last name, is back. And it's undeniable. And people are coming. Yes, people are coming to me who have had no religious background, no relationship with Jesus, being like, Jesus is visiting me in my dreams. Jesus is visiting me in my journeys, like all, and I'm like, pay attention, pay attention. That's not, you're not making this up. Like, this is back and we need it. So that's been really amazing to see, and having people feel comfortable because they hear me talking my crazy stuff, coming to me being like, Becca, I saw Jesus in my meditation last night. Like, what's going on? I'm like, okay, let's get into it.
Becca, you are just amazing. You know that. I feel that you're becoming a voice for people that are going through intense transformation. I know you don't have any services. I know you don't have offerings. I know you don't have a book. So you're merely just here to help the people. So having said that, if people feel like they would like to connect with you, how can they find you?
Yes, I have created just an email address. That's it so far. And it's just Becca dot the in between at gmail.com. And it's really, and I've posted it, I've talked about it locally here, but really I've created it as this separate space. And I put, the in between, because life is kind of always this like liminal in between space. And we're so uncomfortable here, right? We always want to like create a story or a protection or a prediction. And really living life fully is allowing yourself to really live while you're in these liminal in between spaces that can be so uncomfortable. And then not only live there, but thrive there. So that's where that came from. So I welcome anyone to reach out to me. I have a very, very brand new YouTube channel where I'm just kind of finding my voice, and it's just my name, Becca Metzler. You'll just see there's not a whole lot there, but I do plan on building on that because I just have felt I created that around the same time that, I ended up hearing from you. It just feels very much like it is time.
I'll put all that in the description box below for you, including the YouTube channel, because, it all starts somewhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I know we're on to our return signature question. Now, I feel like you had quite the return personally. So I feel you returned to yourself and to who you truly are. And that's just my opinion. But having said that, what truth then did you return with that you would feel you want humanity to know right now?
Oh, man. Because after 5 years of going through this, I could honestly simplify it in one word. And I could just say God, but because that means so much now. There's so much encompassed in that. But it kind of goes back to, what Jesus said, if only you knew what you were. It is this, we are not this little small self that we think we are. We are not all of these identities that we've slapped onto ourselves. We are so much more. And we are never separate from God. We cannot ever be separated from God. And thank God for that, right? Like, what I came back with was just a full body, embodied knowing that God is everywhere. So it's a very different feeling to walk around and move through this world with a kind of conscious knowing that God is right here. And every problem that might seem to appear on your path comes built in with a solution. If you allow yourself to stay open, it will come through. So life does not need to be problem after problem after problem. That is our attempt to sort of split and give identity and names to things. But like, there's just such an expansive capacity to live in alignment with God. That's what I've come back. That's where I live from. That's where I speak from. And it's everything. It's everything.
Wow. What knowledge you have. Becca, I can't thank you honestly enough for sharing your journey, your vulnerability, and sharing the parts of your journey that many people are afraid actually to speak out loud of. Your story reminds people that awakening is not always graceful and healing is not always linear. But even in the darkest moments, there still can be meaning, transformation, and light. So thank you for bringing your story and your heart and your truth here to the Returned today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been fun.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And to everyone watching or listening, this conversation is a gentle reminder that transformation can feel terrifying while it's happening. Sometimes the breakdown comes before the rebuilding. Sometimes healing looks like asking for help, surrendering control, and learning how to stay. Whatever the season you're walking through right now, you are never alone. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you.